Hey everyone, Ari Bee here, reporting on week 4 of the state legislative session. Today I'm actually in the state capitol in the press box on the House of Representatives side. Behind me you'll see all the desks for the representatives as well as staff getting ready for the next day. If you're a legislator, you get one of these nifty binders that has all the pertinent legislation for the day in one place for you. So they're taking out everything from today and putting in all the legislation that's going to be relevant tomorrow and placing those on each of the representatives' desks. So let's dive into everything that happened last week. First up is the ERA, the Equal Rights Amendment. So national and local groups, local Christian conservative groups, not a surprise, have come out strongly opposed to the ERA. This includes the Family Research Council, Eagle Forum, Concerned Women for America, and the Georgia Baptist Mission. As a reminder, the ERA simply says, equality of rights under the law shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or by any state on account of sex. In a letter sent to members of the Georgia legislature, the coalition urges, let us be clear, women's interests will be undercut by the radical language of ERA that strips away from women their unique place in the law. A vote in favor of ratifying ERA in Georgia will be a vote against women's interests, weakening their hard-won rights to advance abortion industry interests. I'll make sure to make a copy of this available for your reading pleasure. Now, next up is the issue of marijuana decriminalization. Senate Bill 10 got a hearing in the Senate Judiciary Committee. Expect a substitute to show up this week as there were some questions raised last week that resulted in the bill being tabled, that is, set aside to be dealt with at a future time. Those issues are concerns that the bill might negatively impact existing medical marijuana bills and laws, as well as concerns that there isn't any increase in penalties for repeat offenders. Right now, as the bill is currently written, if you're found with half an ounce of marijuana or less, you would get a $300 fine, which is a reduction from current laws, which impose a $1,000 fine plus jail time for any amount of marijuana up to, I believe, 1 ounce. And then under this legislation, those protections would extend up to 2 ounces before you start getting into felonies. Lastly, there's work happening in Georgia to address period poverty. That is when someone can't access menstrual products they need during their monthly period. This work is particularly focused on students and how the lack of access to period products impacts middle schoolers and high schoolers. The folks working on this include the advocacy group Georgia STOMP, university researchers from around the state, including from Emory, GSU, KSU, Agnes Scott, and Georgia Southern, and Representatives Debbie Buckner and Kim Schofield. And sorry, Representative, if I butchered your name. Expect to see calls for a study committee on this in the coming week. Now, for once, creating a study committee isn't a way to deflect dealing with this issue. There's actually no US-based data right now on how the lack of access to menstrual product, fears about leaking, and bullying around menstruation in general impacts students. So both on the legislative side and working collaboratively with researchers from our universities, there's a hope that we can get some solid data on this issue and that can be used to inform legislation, again, addressing menstrual inequality or period poverty. You can connect with Georgia STOMP or the legislators leading on this issue if you want to plug in with this work. Next, let's talk about some interesting bills that have been proposed over the past week. Now, this first set has little chance of passing as they're mostly Democrat-led measures, but they're worth naming, and I do always love to be pleasantly surprised. So this includes House Bill 122 and Senate Bill 50, which would eliminate campus carry. That's the same campus carry laws passed 2 years ago. House Bill 58 and House Bill 137 have nearly identical language to make sure that folks convicted of intimate partner violence or family violence are not able to access guns. Similar language, different sponsors. Senate Bill 51 and House Bill 175 would allow municipalities to remove those racist Confederate statues. As a reactionary response, I believe it was the following day or the following day, we saw Senate Bill 77 dropped. This was filed by a group of leading Republicans to further enshrine protections against any damage done to Confederate statues. There's House Bill 19, which adds civil rights protections for LGBT people, and it's got a decent 37 co-sponsors on it. And of this subset of bills that may not go anywhere, there's a few interesting bills from Health and Human Services. House Bill 133 would require that sex ed classes teaching about HIV and AIDS do so in a way that is medically accurate, and actually define medically accurate as being in line with the information provided from organizations like the CDC and other reputable, medically based, research-based organizations. House Bill 158 would make sure that Medicaid recipients are able to access the same kinds of antiretroviral drugs as other folks with HIV or AIDS. There's currently different laws, both federal and state laws, that regulate what kind of drugs folks have access to, mostly trying to keep up with new drugs coming out and making sure that insurance companies can't limit access to newer drugs or drugs where someone's able to take one pill instead of multiple pills. This bill would update language for Medicaid recipients to sort of put it in line with the newest spate of pharmaceutical products available. House Bill 188 seeks to eliminate the $2 million the state currently allocates to fake women's health centers, and House Bill 217 clarifies the legality of harm reduction groups that pass out syringes or engage in needle exchange programs. Currently, only pharmacists or other similar medical institutions can pass out syringes or pass out needles to folks. This legislation, it's not the first time we've seen it, but this legislation makes sure that harm reduction groups or other groups sort of working to address the issue of intravenous drug users and the spread of certain STDs by intravenous drug use are also able to pass out syringes and not be in this legal gray area as to whether or not they're able to do that. Now, bills that are concerning. There's a few of those. Representative Jesse Petra's bill has finally been introduced to create a registry of undocumented people that come into contact with the criminal justice system. This is House Bill 202, and it's been assigned to the Public Safety and Homeland Security Committee. Groups like Asian Americans Advancing Justice, the ACLU, and the Latin American Association, among others, will likely be the main opposition to this sorts of bill. There's also been a resolution, Senate Resolution 112, dropped by a handful of Republicans, and it reads, recommending members of both parties and both sides of the life debate to have a reasonable debate regarding the interpretation and application of the United States Supreme Court decision on Roe v. Wade. I'm not quite sure what this means legislatively at this point. Certainly on the floors of either chamber you will see debate, but it'll be on a specific bill or a specific resolution that they are currently considering. I'm not, in my few years here at least, seen something like this just calling in general for them to talk about an issue, so it's unclear what a bill like this would result in, if anything. The other resolution that is worth highlighting is SR 114. This resolution encourages Congress to fund a border wall. Now, let's dive into rumors. There have been rumors that Senate leadership is going to amend the awful sexual harassment policy they put into place at the beginning of session. But as Senator Jen Jordan pointed out on Twitter, we're going into week 4 and nothing has happened. A religious freedom bill is also still expected, but the rumors about when and how this will be introduced keep changing. So keep your eyes open for RFRA to come at some point in time. That's all I have for you this week. So make sure to follow me here whether that's on Twitter, Medium, YouTube, or Facebook, and post any questions you have below. I'd love to answer them or find somebody who can answer them for you and make sure I'm addressing the questions and concerns that are most pressing to y'all. That's all I have for you this week. Bye.